Three, two, one. Welcome back to another episode of Legion of Lilith. Today we have a very honored guest. I am excited to bring you once again, Michael Hyson. Michael, how are you today, brother?
I'm doing all right.
Good. It's really good to see you, man. I missed you during the last interview, but I'm glad that we were able to connect today. So before we get started, I just give a quick disclaimer. Michael or myself is not responsible for any misinterpretation of the information that we're presenting. It's up to the audience to know what you are consuming. So, yeah, like I said, this is Legion of Lilith. This is one of the only podcasts on YouTube where we openly glorify the devil and his demons. We see the devil, we see Satan as an aspect of God or the source of creation and uncreation at the same time. So, Michael, can you describe the first instances that you perceived and realized that the demons were working in your life and were perhaps trying to get your attention?
Uh, that was years ago. That was I was working with Zaniel at the time, and I spent weeks just going through ceremonial and evocations and just trying to get in touch with him and see, what he could teach me and what we can do to further the craft. And it was right when I was just beginning my journey into witchcraft and demonolatry. So it was that intermediary crossover. Next thing I know, it was like a roller coaster because things started happening. Started noticing the temperatures just kept changing in my ritual room. At the time, I was living down in Texas.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that it was just magnificent. The portion of Texas that I was living in at the time never dropped below 50 degrees. We had an ice storm move through there. It was magnificent. That was one of the signs. Number two, we started having these weird things going on. My roommates said they were freaked out because every time they got up to go to the restroom, it was like I was speaking in three different people, three different voices. And I was working with the Satanic Bible by Anton Zander LaVey at the time. And I was working specifically with the Goetia, just going through these beings. And I came across the link between teachers. So I started getting into the teachers while I was doing my research. Zaniel was one of the biggest ones that was right up front. I had no idea what to expect. I started listening while I was doing meditations, and I heard the voice right behind my left ear. I was the only one in the house at the time. The only one said, "Bleed on the altar," because I wanted to know, how can I connect with you even better, And all of a sudden, he goes, "Bleed on the altar." And you know how the books tell you, don't turn around. How do you not turn around when that happens the first time?
Right.
And it takes you a minute. It's like, wait a minute. It's just me and a cat. Where the hell did that come from? So, yeah, that was one of the very first instances that I had with an encounter with a demon. So he was telling me, bleed on the altar. So it's like, okay, why should I bleed on the altar? None of the grimoires say anything about blood, you know? So I started delving into different aspects of blood sorcery and blood magics, and I found out there was a lot of different lore behind it. Blood hemomancy is basically the more common name for it, but it's bloodletting. It's associated with lycanthropy, vampiric practices, necromancy, and a number of other practices. So it was like, wow, okay. So I started doing that, and things just started getting more and more, intense. And it's like, okay, let's go on to other spirits and let's see what's going on here. So I started realizing everything that you've been taught growing up. Well, in my case, it wasn't really much because my mother was, spiritual, but she didn't go to church. My friends always went to church every Sunday. I went once, was asked never to come back. Let's just say I asked too many questions. I know today that they just didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want they didn't want to delve into the mythos or try to explain from their variation. So I realized at a young age, demons were real. It's magic is the sorcery that we use. It's like a telephone number to get in touch with them. So that's been the way it is.
That's fantastic. You said you were in Texas at the time. Texas is interesting. Per capita, I would say Texas is the satanic capital of the United States of America. I mean, you have a Mexican population that is totally satanic. You have just a lot of Satanists end up in Texas for whatever reason. So,
not mentioning other practitioners too. So, but
yeah.
it kind of depends on where in Texas you are. But
right.
For me, I was in Red River County.
Okay, like El Paso is, or El Paso. El Paso is the spot where a lot of the hardcore Mexican practitioners are, for sure.
It's southern Texas, and you got northern Mexico right there, which is a lot of Brujeria practices and everything. So I mean, it's one of those practices that is magnificent. I recently got into it as of last year.
Zaniel. Interesting. So who is at the pinnacle of Michael Hyson's pantheon?
For me, you got to go with Astaroth. Astaroth is my patroness.
Mm-hmm.
She's been in my life for a very long time. She's never let me down or steered me in the wrong direction. I had a lot of faith and a lot of trust in her.
Yeah. Do you work with her under the mask of Astarte?
Yes.
Or just strictly Astaroth?
In my experience, she actually answers to both.
That's one of the spirits that that the ancient Hebrews actually took the archetype for Ashera or Ashtoreth and mixed it with their deity, which ended up being El Shaddai.
Yep.
And so a mixture between El and Ashera. So yeah, that's one of the most elevated spirits that, if you want to say infernal, but I usually see Astarte as more of a celestial or angelic, glowing with a blue whitish radiance.
She's one of the best spirits out there that I know. Very open, very direct, but has that calm demeanor.
So have you ever witnessed an injustice and had to act as the left hand of God?
I have.
Can you describe that a little bit?
Well, there was two instances. One last year, I ended up doing a ritual with Azazel and Pazuzu.
Mm.
And I started out with a scrying mirror. I was encircled by candles, and I ended up being led. This was completely surprising to me that I was led into getting a box, and I ended up going into the Jewish customs of this, and it was basically what is known as a Dibbet box, basically. And when you look at Dibbet boxes, they're mostly for baneful spirits that are not meant for human. How should I say this? Coexistence would be the term. So you'd put them in there and lock them away. But the way I was led to believe is it doesn't end there. You can do this with any spirit, including humanity. So doing curses, 1,000 cuts is worse than death. But what about eternity in solitude? It goes into so many different aspects of psychology, self-harm, insanity, you name it, it'll go on. And I ended up putting, I had the effigy, had the triangle, the inverted triangle and sulfur with sea salt, black sand, and crystals with 3 candles there. I had on one hand side, I had the curse jar. On the other hand, the Dibbit box, and I drew the seals. I did everything that was shown to me, that I was led to do, and I put it at the end after about 3 weeks of doing this on a nightly basis. I put everything into the Dibbit box and shoved it into the river. It was very, very potent. Oh yeah, it was. I spent the next 48 to 72 hours cleansing my altar room. After that, just getting the baneful energies out of there, so I can continue on the work. Recently, I had another encounter where I was petitioned by a family member to do a curse on someone. Let's just say this individual is in a lot of hot water right now because of the fact that the accusations, the neglect, everything that this person has done up until now is against the law of the land. You're looking at federal and local crimes being committed. You've got the state that stepped in because of it. And now, since I've done that, you've got CPS involved, and the legal system is looking into this individual as well. So there's a lot going down on that one still. And I actually shared this with my elders, and they said, well, a couple of them said, that is magnificent. It's very potent so far. I showed this to a voodoo practitioner of mine, a friend of mine, a coworker, and he said, he looked right at it and said, what was the crimes and the reason behind it? And I told him, and he said, that explains the energy and the spirits that are surrounding that rite. There's a lot of very potent demonic activity there. And it's like, you're damn well bet it is, especially with who I was calling on. Because I was calling on everybody from Samael, Pazuzu, to Abaddon, and even going into the Hellhounds, the other death agents from folklore. I was calling them, inviting them to come in, and just saying, hey, have your way with this individual. Do what needs to be done. I brought in Hecate because she's the goddess of justice. I brought in Osiris because he's the god of iniquity. I brought in Anubis because of the weighing of the feather in the heart. And it's like, I just brought in all these beings, and I said, hey, this is the crimes. They're being accused of this individual. This is what this individual's doing. I've been asked by family to deal with this because this individual is getting away with this through the legal system. The law is doing nothing to prevent it. I'm calling on you to deal with it. I'm petitioning you to deal with this.
Any one of those spirits that you named could easily have handled that situation. You brought in the heavy hitters on that one for sure. The reason why I ask you that is because it's become an integral part of my practice. My patron is Belial, and studying under Belial, he gleams upon me the wisdom that you practitioners, when we bring you knowledge of these arts, we are training you to be Satans. We are training you to be accusers.
Exactly.
And me and Demetrius offer a rite it's a right of deputization under Belial. And what you're doing when you spot an injustice, you're dragging that person's spirit into the court of Belial, and you're asking Belial to mitigate justice, to mete out justice as he sees fit. There are techniques that you could act on Belial's behalf. If you see something in the street and you need to curse the person on the spot, you call upon Belial, you invoke Belial, and you curse that individual in his name. What usually will happen is Belial will subtly possess you, and you'll end up fucking that person up on the spot.
There's a lot of rage that comes with that.
Yeah. So that's why I mentioned that. And for practitioners out there, you have to be an accuser and a propagator of justice, hatred, just hatred and wrath, that you would see your fellow man not have to wait around for the system to get justice done. There are some of us that are walking around that will mete out that justice on in the name of the demons. So yeah.
The way I tell my apprentice is, and my clients, is plain. It's just like this. Black magic is the balancing factor.
Yes.
When the world fails you, black magic will seek out that justice for you without fail.
And the Abrahamic deity, it just seems like it moves so slow. Like it just moves.
Yeah, you can go months.
Yeah. So have you ever witnessed, that was the last question. So this is a long one. In Western magical traditions, Lucifer is usually the first spirit we come into actual contact with. As a test of the first cast shadow, or the gate that we must pass through, Lucifer bestows upon us for a time with a portion of his power. Can you describe how you handled that ordeal, assuming that you went under that specific initiation?
Well, the first time I came into contact with Lucifer, and I said this in the last video, was when I was 5, and he appeared to me. When I became a practitioner of Satanism, and I became a devout, I do work with Lucifer. He, to me, has always been the enlightening factor. He's always brought wisdom. He's always brought guidance, knowledge, but more so when it comes to taking command, he has shown that road, that path to take and how to do it. When we go into, it's not like the JCI where he's just an angel that gets cast out. No. If you actually work with Lucifer, you're going to find out that he is one of those beings that you really want to get to know and befriend. He is known as the Emperor for a reason. Within the Goetic, or not the Goetic, I should say, but the Grimoire traditions, he's known as the Emperor for a reason. He has earned that title. There's a lot of things that he can teach you and show you. In my instance, I have called on him for guidance, and he'll either come to me personally and say, hey, this is what's going on, this is what you need to do, or he will direct me to one of the others that will guide me, depending on the situation.
Yeah. So what happened to me was how I got in touch with Lucifer when I really started practicing hardcore. I was doing the Bornless Rite, which traditionally is a method for getting in touch with your holy guardian angel or your daemon. For me, I was inspired to fast for 3 days, not to have sexual intercourse. This was all instructions by Lucifer.
Yeah.
And on the third morning, I performed the rite. And right before twilight, right as the sun was about to come up, a blue orb came into my bedroom, like at the angle where all your walls meet, but at that at that angle. It came in at that angle and floated around my room and went into my chest.
Yep.
At that point, I knew that Lucifer was inside me and I was endowed with a portion of his power. He insists that I handled it well. This went on for about 9 days.
Mhm.
I did not handle it well. I was probably
14.
I was I was probably clinically insane. I would do just like off the wall sporadic shit. Start directing traffic. I was saluting the sun and giving proclamations to
Mhm.
the sun. I like his energy is heavy, and if you're not ready to handle that, you could definitely go flywheel loose.
Mhm.
But a lot of people, like I said, that's when Lucifer comes into you and you become illuminated, you cast your first shadow, and
Exactly.
you walk through the first gate with him, and that's the test. If you can handle his power and energy and not get yourself killed within that duration of time or committed, you pass the initiatic ordeal.
He put me through a test about 11 years ago. And in a way, that took me from who I used to be into what I became. Is I went from living in Texas to coming to Maine for the first time, only to go down to Tucson. And it was interesting because of the fact that I ended up out on the street down there in Tucson for 14 days. No food, no water, and no sleep for 14 days. And it was very interesting because I did a lot of things. I remember doing them, but I don't know why I did them. I know I woke up in a place called Keno for a day, witnessed a few things, learned a few things, and it was interesting because I believe during that time the real me started coming out,
Mhm.
and it was truly the beginning of my descent within his domain, his kingdom. It was like I was ready, fully ready to, how should I say this, walk the path with him as a spiritual person. It was like that atheistic side of me just left, and the spiritual journey as a devout worshiper took over. It wasn't about being atheist, it wasn't about being agnostic. It was like whatever I was before just did not matter anymore. He showed me that it was about your challenge, your growth. You are ready to go to that next level. Let's see if you can push through.
You see, what you described was your initiatic descent into the clip off. You were awake for 14 days, no food, no water.
Mhm.
What people don't realize, it's not some fantastical astral ordeal where you go to these different planetary realms. Yes, that you can go on those astral journeys, but what you're describing, hell is all around us. The clip off is all around us. That sleep deprivation. I'm sure you've seen things on that ordeal that hell opened itself up to you, and you've seen the subtleties of it. This I tell people that the clip off. We're in it now. Hell is all around us.
Exactly.
Heaven is all around us. We're in the in between place. So. That's heavy, man. That you went through a heavy ordeal for sure.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. I think my video. Ah, there it is.
Let's try to get you back there. There you go. You're good.
Yeah. I was
So
gonna say because I'm seeing you in two locations here.
yeah, it's sometimes on Skype the feed just gives in and out.
Ah, okay.
So
But yeah, I remember that last night before I woke up in Keno,
yeah,
I was literally yelling at the sky during a thunderstorm that produced a flash flood within 3 seconds. I was cursing God. I was cursing his son, blaspheming against the spirit, the whole and the church, anything that was associated with him, basically rejecting him. And I remember it all. But like I said, I didn't know why at the time. But you are correct on that. It's that growth. It's that you're ready to go into this next level, and that's exactly what happened.
When you see those people out on the street and they have like blankets over them and they're like yelling at fucking telephone poles, they're in the clip off.
Mm-hmm.
They are there. So the archangel of Rome, Samael, is known as the enemy of Israel. Can you speak to why the deity would pit his supposed chosen people against his holy church and archangel?
Samael is one of those ones. His name actually translates into venom of God. Mm-hmm. He's one of those spirits that is very spiteful, very vengeful. He's really one of those type of warrior angels, how should I say this, an archangel, if you will, that really, when he goes all out, he goes all out. He's not going to sit there and hold back. He's not going to hold the punches. He's going to speak with a serpent tongue. He's going to go out and do what needs to be done. He's not going to wait for permission. He's not going to do what you need or what they need. If there's something that he needs to do, he's just going to do it. He's not going to be one of those angels or one of those demons in this case that is going to sit there and go, all right, I'm just going to sit back and take whatever you want to throw at me. No. In my experience, Samael is a very venomous spirit to work with. He is, in my opinion, is a spirit of hatred, of vengeance. If you think of, say, for an example, let's go with Azrael, okay, the demon of death. Anybody who's worked with death knows you don't fuck around. You don't mess around with these spirits. Samael is that type of spirit that you don't mess with unless you really have to. I don't call on him unless I really have to. And I've had to call on him within the last 7 to 8 months just based off the 2 curses that I've done. I don't love him that much because of that.
Well, some people choose as their patron Samael, and being initiated under Samael, there's one of 2 things that are going to happen. You're going to receive, from his energy, you are going to receive enlightenment through insanity. Mm-hmm. His venom is the cure for the human sickness, as he put it, the disease of humanity, for seeing things how they actually are, tasting the fruits of knowledge, and really letting your taste buds envelop the poison and the virtues, the sweetness of the fruit. So it's on the clip off, the sphere of Samael is the spirit that rules over that is Melik Taus, and all those colors on the tail of the peacock, that's the insanity. That's when your eyes are opened and you see things. The illusion disappears, and you have that divine insanity, so to speak.
Yeah, it's like that veil is just ripped right apart. It's like dawn, and you see the truth. You see what is really there. You're not seeing the illusions, if you will.
So the cult of Apollo is an order that deals with high-level solar mysteries and speaks on the first political manifestations of the satanic powers and demonology coming out of the courts and churches. In fact, Balius, Baal Bohu Kevashar Adonai, the shadow of Shaddai, Belial, has told me he has been seated on the throne in Rome since the church's inception. Why do you think the rebel angels feel so at home in the courts and councils of mankind?
It's because in my opinion, whenever you look at the events that's going on in the world, and this is very clearly evident, you're seeing how they're playing the game with humanity. I look at it as a game of chess. If we go by the ONA aspects of the Star game, each country would be a celestial realm, if you will. Christians are going for that apocalypse. These rebel angels are going, okay, we're not going to play your game, but guess what? We'll play along with you. We're not here to win. We're here to let you make fools out of yourself. And this is the interesting part, is because everything that I've seen so far, from the Dead Sea Scrolls all the way up through the poetical texts to the more modern JCI biblical, if you will, compared to that of, say, the more modern grimoires, such as the demonic Bible by Turksu's Edge. Just working with these angels, it's not these rebels, it's not about winning. It's about playing that game and learning to evolve by playing their game and outsmarting them. It's about you becoming more better through yourself, through your practices, and how you handle each situation. It's about you growing. When I got into, say, for an example, and I'm going to kind of switch over to philosophy here real quick.
Yeah. Of course,
If
my
we
friend.
go, if we go into Bushido, the way of the samurai, somebody who is prepared for death doesn't fear death. Okay? But if we go into, say, Sun Tzu's The Art of War, to know oneself is to know one's enemy. The greatest enemy is yourself. How many people today do you see in a run of a day that trip themselves up, perform hypocritical or duality within their words and their deeds, within their very lifestyles? How many forget that it's not about money or power? It's about enlightenment. It's about doing what is needed to be done within sight of right and wrong. Most don't see this. To master yourself, in my opinion, is to know who you are and what you're about. From there, when you go into the corporate world, let's say medical facility where I work, I know what I'm capable of doing. I know my opponents because I'm observant of their actions and what they're doing. I had a coworker. As soon as I began my job there, I knew what she was about. So I made a remark to her one day because of how she always postured in the kitchen. She did exactly everything that was shown to me that this type does. My coworker said, "You shouldn't have done that because now she's going to go to HR. She's going to go to the administrator. She's going to go to this person and that person, and you're going to have a riot on your hands." I said, "What makes you think I'm not prepared for this?" I know exactly what she's about because I've seen her type before. About an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I'm out setting up the dining hall. The HR, personnel came up to me and asked me, "What happened to the kitchen?" So I told her, "Okay, just from now on, watch what you say. I'll have a word with her." So it literally backfired on this individual. Basically, I took her down a couple of steps, a couple of pegs.
As you
Now,
should.
these rebel angels, these rebel spirits, they teach you about the world. They're not going to be a part of the world, but they're willing to help those who are in the world. That's the difference that most people don't really perceive. They think it's all about, okay, we're going to take over the world. We're going to be that elite. No. They've already been here. They've already done what we're doing. They're guiding us. So we don't perform the same mistakes that they did. They want us to grow and evolve.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's about. So, I mean, some people, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Sun Tzu, they were right. Even Friedrich Nietzsche. These guys are masters within their fields. You get into what we do. We're working with spirits. We're daring to work with these rebel spirits. We're there becoming their apprentices. You know what I'm saying? We're learning from them, like parents to a child. We're the children. We're their apprentices. They're helping us evolve. And when I look to my apprentices, I'm telling them, we're not a part of the world. We may work in the world, but we're not part of them anymore. There is that increase.
Heavy stuff. Go ahead, Michael. Keep going.
There's that. Sorry, I don't mean to preach.
No, I love it. I love it. It's good stuff.
It's more about, you got those degrees. You got the common folk. Then you got the old school Hexa, the Strega, the Eshi, and the Ashin. That were always, even the shaman or the necromancer, they either answered to, they either lived next to the king, or they lived on the outskirts of town or out in the boondocks. But it was more of the fact that they were the keepers of the wisdom. So when you become an elder, like say a practitioner of the arts, it's like being the smartest kid in the room. You just don't relate to the lesser folk. You look at them, it's like, why are you doing this crap again and again and again? Don't you know that philosophy of a man who does not learn from history is doomed to repeat it? We as more enlightened individuals, we're not better than you, but it's more of the fact that we can lead you to that well, but we can't force you to drink. You've got to do that on your own. And that's basically the way I see these rebel spirits, especially with my own experience with them, is they're willing to guide, but they're not going to do everything for you. Eventually, they're going to cut that umbilical cord, and you're on your own. How are you going to stand on your 2 feet if you don't master what they're putting in front of you?
Mm.
That's the way I look at it.
It's a Gnostic revelation. A lot of Satanists would say, "Man, you're fucking crazy. You're telling me that Belial is on the throne of Rome, of the Vatican?" Yes,
Yeah.
he is. The uninitiated will never see this. It's a paradox. The lawless angel will teach you how to do rituals of the court of Belial. So he tells me like this. He said that, meaning like you said, the common folk.
Yeah.
They have their laws, we have ours.
Yeah.
Meaning the demons.
You have the spiritual law, and then you have the physical law. They don't always go inside.
Do you feel that Satanists, demonolators should have a proper party and representation in the government and political arena?
I think they should, because if you look at the church, doesn't matter if it's the Catholics, let's just call it the overall the way it is, the JCI, the Judo-Christian institutions. Islam practitioners can go into our schools. They can pray three times a day in school. But yet you can't do this as a Satanist or a Wiccan or a pagan. Doesn't the United States Constitution say that what makes up a protected religion? First Amendment right, not just freedom of speech. So anyone from the legal system all the way up to the presidency gets sworn in with the Christian Bible. Why not a satanic Bible? Why not the wicked Bible? You know what I'm saying? Where's
Absolutely.
the equality? It's supposed to be equal rights. No individual, sect, organization, or individual has a right to limit or deny. But yet we see it every day. You got a group like the TST that's going out suing everybody over violations. Why don't they go about this instead of this whole abortion thing that they've been on lately? Yeah, they got the Baphomet statues put up. I think it was idiotic to put it next to the Ten Commandments, but that's like saying, "Hey, I'm going to kick you in the cojones and see what happens." But it's like, okay, where I live currently, okay, you have different districts that you can set up organizations. Okay, like you have different portions of the city that has a Christian church. There are other sects that you can, districts that you can do this as well. But for, like, say, a Wiccan coven or a satanic coven, for that matter, a satanic temple or church, it's there. But if you're going to put that right next to a hornet's nest, knowing that you're going to be kicking that over, that's just idiotic. Why not coexist? You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, when it comes to the governments and the legal system, we should have a say in that. We should have a representative that can go in there, be on the Senate, be as a representative, hell, even be, vice president or the president someday, and have a say in what goes on within the world. I strongly believe that.
I agree with you totally. That's why I proposed the question to you. I definitely think that we need representation. I mean, I think that Satanists are the most logical, down to earth. We actually stand for the equality that does not exist, the equality that is a lie. But I do believe that we need representation. I posed that question to Thomas Leroy, and he said that Satanism may lose its edge, or it's like herding cats. I understand his argument as well.
Yeah.
But legally, I feel like they're, especially with everything that happened with Bog and everything, any of us can get taken out at any time. And we're supposed to have rights that protect us. And yeah, we have a constitution, but people wipe their ass with it.
Yeah.
And
I look at it like this: the Hydra. You can eliminate one head, two more grows back in its place. That's Satanism. We're individuals, but we can work as a herd, a collective.
Agreed. So this is a heavy question right here. So do you believe our government, the United States government, has been captured or occupied by members of the Sanhedrin or the cult of Yahweh?
Cult of Yahweh, definitely. There's too much bickering in house. There's too much worldly stuff going on. When the government was set up, it was supposed to be equality for all. All men were created free to do as they will. You look at the legal systems between, the legal laws between the federal and state laws. Grand collective of 666. 666. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you have nothing but Christians in house and they're all feuding with each other, they're not listening to the people. This is like going back to the old days. You got the kings listening to the bishops or the cardinals, and the people are the ones suffering. But yet people are believing the hype. They're just rolling over, because it's that whole turning the other cheek.
Absolutely.
What happened to that other one about eye for an eye, blood for blood, tooth for tooth, life for life? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I do believe the cult of Yahweh has taken over the government. In fact, I believe they've taken over most governments.
Yeah, I mean that's the face
It's
of
not
the
just U.S.
right. The face of the Sanhedrin. That is the operating Illuminati. That is who they are. Um,
The one percenters.
right. I mean, you can actually say that us as practitioners, Satanists, we are part of that elite. We are part of that 1%, but we find ourselves outside when it comes to representation in the government. So I do think that we are making the correct steps in the right directions. The spirits are guiding us, like you said, and we are shaping and molding this malleable reality to as we see fit. Um, what is the great work to you, Michael Hyson?
For me, it's a matter, in my opinion, it's more about doing what needs to be done within our own lives, but also listening and being guided by the spirits. The great work, in my opinion, is they having a goal for us. Those of us who have basically performed the rite of renunciation. This could be anything from rejecting, say, the JCI or rejecting the world to do spiritual matters. If you look at what a shaman or a necromancer or in our status as spiritualists do, we are the ones that walk with one foot in the grave, one in the world. We are the ambassadors. And if you look at, you mentioned Belial, what does he represent? What does he do? He is the bestower of titles of importance, gives excellent familiars. Mine's sitting right up here at the moment. And it's interesting to see just how much they've done for us. You go to them and say, hey, I renounce the world. I renounce this particular religion. My goal and my aim is to further spiritualism. For an example, that's my goal. For me, the world does not matter to me like it does to other people. It baffles the hell out of my coworkers because what they're interested in is something that I'm not. So you see that difference. But at the same time, I look at how people come to me for guidance and wisdom. I go to these spirits. I represent them. Okay. I am not them. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, I'm Asmodeus. I'm Belial. I'm this or that spirit, like you see on social media these days. That's just plain idiotic. You cannot be them. Vocalocus Auriac said it best in his book. If we're all Satan, does that mean there's 7 billion Satans in the world? It just doesn't work that way. I am their ambassador. When I chose to go into the priesthood and become a minister, I left the world behind to do their bidding, to be a representative of both worlds. That is my fulfillment. Whatever comes after I leave this world, who knows? I may end up being in the hierarchy of the underworld because of my loyalty and trust and faith in them. Who knows?
That was the question I asked you. That is the great work. Cementing your title and rank within the demonic hierarchy.
And that's basically where it's leading to, because if you look at how much you grow throughout your career as a Satanist or a demonologer, doesn't matter if you're a witch or warlock, you are performing the rights that and the duties of a minister, a clergy, a man of wisdom or a woman of wisdom, keepers of the sacred knowledge. So when you leave this world, if you're true enough, if your trust and faith is in them, then yeah, they'll give you a position. I mean, you look at all the stories of the Grigori and the Watchers from the Book of Enoch. All those that stood next to Satan or Zazel, or, Azazel in this case, that were loyal to him, ended up with ranks. Look at the 9 kings. They were given ranks of kings for their loyalty and trust. They followed without doubt, and they did what needed to be done while doing that revolt. That's what they did, and they ended up being kings. They got their reward for a position of authority. That's, as you said, that's the great work.
Apotheosis.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Look at Balam, who was a prophet in biblical times, and he is credited for leading Israel astray. And for that act, he is now a demonic king.
Exactly.
So,
Asmodeus is another one.
yeah, there are other examples like Metatron was a human being transfigured into the Prince of Angels. But you brought up Hasmodai or Asmodeus, Hashmodai. He was of royalty. His father was King David, and his mother was Agrat Bat Malat, the demoness. So yeah, he was born of royalty.
Exactly. In the book of Tobit, he's was a demon that was infatuated with a woman, killed off most of her suitors, and the last one went to an angel and said, "Hey, how do I prevent this?"
Yeah, Asmodeus loves Sarah.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you go into Islamic traditions, he was a man that was promoted to demonhood, a king. So there's a number of, as you put it, there's a number of different stories and myths about him.
Yeah, transfigured human beings that
Mhm.
climbed the ranks, did the great work, and cemented their rank and title in the
Exactly.
hierarchy. Asmodeus is a really good example. Another angelic example would be Elijah. It was transfigured into the angel Sandalphon.
Mm-hmm.
But for all intents and purposes, for demonolators, Balam is probably the best example because he was a human being and now he's a.
Yeah.
So, why is the existence of generational witch hunters and Draco Slayer lodges swept under the rug amongst left-handed practitioners and occultists? Do you perceive this as a genuine threat? Like government sponsored witch hunters.
I do believe that there's witch hunters out there. I've come across a couple myself and had to deal with them. When you gain a certain amount of knowledge, I did a story on a Facebook group. It was based off witchcraft. And I did it on the title of Warlock. I went through numerous sources. I went through um, etymologies, history, accounts, and I posted this in the group, and it was immediately, it was like a gangbang. That was the best way I can describe it. It was a gangbang of like 50 people, including admin, just focusing on the word warlock from the Anglo-Saxon and Welsh perception of deceiver and betrayer.
Right.
It didn't matter that I had just proven to them that they were wrong. Is knowledge a threat? Damn straight it is, because it sets people free for those who are willing to listen, those who are willing to do their own homework. If you give sources, if you give references, this allows them the free reign to decide for themselves. Hey, here's the apple from the tree of good and evil. The knowledge of good and evil. Let's see, if I bite this and eat this apple, I'll gain enlightenment. Therefore, I'll become an individual and become awake. Okay? But if I don't, I'm continuing to live as a slave, to live that illusion, that lie. When I did this, I became the adversary. I became the enemy and united these people for a common goal,
Mm.
to attack me because I became the threat.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. You had run in with some of the JCI stooges, Ramirez, and
Mhm.
because I seen your post on that, and it blew up. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it blew
I think
up.
the last time I looked at it was 4.5K hits. It was just like, damn.
I
And
was like, Hyson caught lightning in a bottle with that.
I mean, the funny thing is, I had this individual, his client, he basically came to me and said, hey, what are you, will you do a video on this guy? You know, because you're so full of knowledge and everything you told me has come to pass. I'd like to see what you think of this guy. So within about 4 hours, I had done my homework. I'd watched videos, his own videos. The first one I watched was a video called "The Dangers of the Occult." Was it Santeria and the Occult? Okay, and then I went from there into his personal channel and started watching all these interviews he did. And from there, I ended up watching these other ones from fellow Christians. You know, from his fellow Christians and everything, and how some of them were actually a part of his church, okay, and turned against him because of the BS that he was spewing. And I found this one channel. It had like 11 or 12 videos dedicated to exposing him. And I was watching down through, listening to it, taking notes, and everything that this one channel had was things that I had already caught on his interviews, on his personal videos that he's done. Like you and I, if we go into the front of a metaphysical shop, we can tell you exactly, anybody from a reporter to a Catholic priest or whatever. This is what this symbol is. This is what this deity represents. This is his history. He never did this. Okay, not once did he go into the background of this being. Everything was just of the devil. Okay, now he clearly said flat out he started out in Santeria before going into Palo Mayombe. I've been initiated into both of these traditions. Okay. I caught him on that lie. Okay. Now suddenly he has a book out of the Devil's Cauldron. You're noticing the age that he got into it kept changing between the age of 7 to the age of 13. The amount of years that he was in this tradition changed. How he met his wife changed.
He's just making shit up as he goes along.
Yeah. And if you watch carefully on his interviews, anytime he does anything to do with promoting his book, that's when the waterworks kick in. Not once in his background did he say anything about being a Satanist. Not once. But as soon as he wrote that book, now I'm an ex-Satanist.
Right.
You go underneath YouTube and you type in exposing Satanism, or you exposing, say, for an example, let's say John Ramirez. You're going to come up with a lot of videos that promote him, but you'll also see the ones that don't, that actually become the adversary and the accuser to him. My video, I actually touched on the facts. Every little white lie that he had said. He couldn't keep anything straight from one video to the next. And I called him out on it. I even did a follow-up with a woman named Heather. I forget her last name, but it was the second video I did, and I actually replied to her personally on my YouTube channel. And it was roughly about a month later, maybe 2 months later, I ended up seeing another post why don't you sit down with this guy and talk? Said, I'm game. Bring him on. I waited 2.5 hours until both my cell phone and my laptop batteries were dying.
Mm.
He never showed up.
Of course not. Of course
No.
not.
That's the
not.
difference between a real practitioner and a fake.
Because he's a fucking liar.
Uh-huh.
Liar.
And
So,
that
Michael.
touched, and that literally touched the nerve amongst the JCI because you just attacked one of their own.
Right.
I got called a devil, an antichrist. I got called evil.
Awesome.
And it was like, hey, that's a compliment to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, can one magician make a difference in prosecuting an injustice and fighting for the rights of other sovereign beings?
Yeah. And you look at history, it shows that one person can make that difference. You go back to the 14th century, look at Joan of Arc, the Maid of Lorraine. One person united France, pushed out the English a lot of the way until she was persecuted, tried, and burned at the stake. That lit a fire underneath her commanders, who literally forced them out. You go back to Julius Caesar, portrayed by his best friend because he was shown the Enlightenment. You look at one man inspiring the world. You got everybody from, say, for an example, what name should I use here? Albert Einstein, okay? Created the A-bomb. This set off a chain of events that created other countries to do the same, elevating warfare. Sun Tzu created the art of war. What happened? Now you got others going not only by that, but they're living their lives through that and forging their own. Alistair Knott, a spokesman for theistic Satanism, actually wrote a book. What is it called? I have it over there somewhere.
I'm familiar with it, though.
Yeah. Well, he wrote a book that was based off the art of war.
Okay.
And he put his own spin on it, but it was based off that book. But in some instances, it was also based off War and Peace. Now, personally, I like War and Peace because it brings in the political aspect of the inner courts. So if you're looking at, say, the government or the legal system, let's say a courtroom, or you're dealing with, say, corporate, you're going to be going into that espionage where everybody's going to be shoving that proverbial knife into each other's backs, trying to overdo each other. What better way to be ready than to have that knowledge? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So one person can make a difference when applying their gift or their talent in the right direction.
Absolutely. Very inspiring examples that you cited all the way around. Fuck, we've touched on a lot of intense. Like I said, this video is specifically going to be for those that are highly initiated. Michael, thank you kindly for coming back on. We're right at a little bit over an hour. As you know, the attention spans of people are very
time flies
short.
when you're having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Michael, where can people find you for your ritual services and just to get in contact?
Hit me up on Messenger. You can also go under Hyson, myhson35 @gmail.com. Just send me an email saying, hey, this is what's going on. I need your help. We can talk privately there, or just hit me up on Messenger. That's where most of my clients do. You can also go underneath my YouTube channel and send me a message. I'll reply.
Yeah, Michael's very, very approachable, and I would advise anyone that is looking for any spiritual services, yeah, definitely hit him up. He's legit. He's the real deal. Thanks again for coming on, Michael. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, brother. I look forward to talking to you soon, and we'll bring you on again in like a month or so if you'd be willing.
I'll be available.
Thank you. It's been an honor, Michael.
Same.
Yeah, have a great rest of your day, brother, and hail Satan.
Egio Satanas.
All right.